including a 1965 executive order issued by President Lyndon Baines Johnson that outlawed the discrimination against Black folks in hiring for federal government positions. So Trump has rescinded all of those executive orders and imposed new executive orders that abolished and seek to whitewash and erase all federal government initiatives to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that includes recognizing Black History Month. That includes lessons that Air Force pilots learn about the struggles of the Tuskegee Airmen and what they went through, but yet they became some of the most highest performing airmen throughout World War II. So much has been happening, a flurry of executive orders, and we wanted to talk about those executive orders, particularly the freeze in spending on federal grants and loans that was issued this week, along with last week's ban on or pause or freeze on spending under the affordable, not under the Affordable Care Act, but under the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure deal. So we want to talk about that, but you know, the nation was tragically reminded last night that tragedy can happen at any time, and it did last night. And so I want us to take just a moment of silence to offer to the souls who were lost in the aircraft crash disaster last night. Thank you. And President Trump held a press conference today where he just couldn't help himself. You know, I mean, to listen to it was sickening, the lack of grace and dignity that he has, the compulsive nature that he cannot control and allows to come out at the most unfortunate times when you should be giving aid and comfort to the families of the victims of this disaster, and uniting the nation around getting to the bottom of what happened. He blames it on he comes up with a cause for the disaster before the investigation has really started. He blames the pilot of the helicopter, and he blames the air traffic control workers, and he blames diversity, equity, and inclusion, insinuating that the people who were directing air traffic were somehow diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, which is code for Black people, and and unqualified and incapable of rendering effective service as air traffic controllers. So he blamed it on Obama standards for air traffic controllers that were made worse by Joe Biden. And nothing could be further from the truth. Let's not get it twisted. Let me tell you what the timeline is in terms of recent events at the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority. On January 20th, which is when Trump was inaugurated, that same day he fired the FAA director. On January 21st, he froze all air traffic controller hiring. On the 22nd, he disbanded the Aviation Safety Advisory Committee. Can you believe that? And then on January 28th, he issued a email to all 2 million or to 2 million federal employees, threatening them unless they accepted a retirement buyout, uh, threatening them with the fact that if you don't accept this buyout, 8 months of pay, and you don't even have to work, just stay home and let us know your decision within the next week. You know, uh, if you don't accept the buyout, then expect that your working conditions are going to change. You may not have the same position that you had. We might ask you to mop up instead of do the work that you were hired to do. You're due to be reassigned. You're going to have to work increased hours. I mean, just threats and intimidation. That letter went out on January 28th, that ransom email. And then on January 29th, yesterday, after all of that, America experienced a midair collision which produced 67 fatalities. And then today, he blamed it on everybody other than himself, Trump. And so that's what happened. And so, he's flooding the zone with all kinds of executive orders. I wanted to talk about the fact that this freeze that he announced on I believe it was Monday, federal freeze. It was either Monday or Tuesday. Uh, is going to would harm our economy, would hurt a lot of people, hurt a lot of small businesses, hurt a lot of families, hurt a lot of poor people, hurt a lot of children, hurt a lot of elderly people, hurt um, veterans, homeless veterans, among others. You know, it's a serious business. And so he was taken to court, and a court in Washington, D.C. ruled that his actions were illegal. And so the next day, which was yesterday, Trump rescinded the memo, but he did not rescind his intent to do this federal freeze on all government spending. He did not renounce that, and he will reimpose it if the courts allow him to do so. And so this gathering tonight is just to bring attention to what may happen in the very near future. Fortunately, the court has stayed the order of Trump to freeze the payments, but it could very well go back into effect. And so we need to be ready to act when that happens. And so I wanted you to know of some of the ways that we could be hurt by this rescission of federal funding. And so I've got some folks who operate nonprofit organizations that can tell you how it would impact their operations. And the first that I'd like to introduce to you is Jimmy U. Evans, who is co-CEO of Project Community Connections Incorporated, which works to permanently rehouse individuals and families experiencing homelessness into decent, affordable places to live and thrive. And before I give him the floor, I want to read a quote of his that sums up his work and that of PCCI. Quote, when working with people experiencing homelessness, it's critical to open a window of opportunity and reach into it quickly to successfully inspire change. If we can open that window, even a crack, we can set in motion an endless opportunity to thrive. One of the most inspirational parts of my job is to see the glimmer of hope this opportunity creates and to see how that bit of hope fuels personal growth and self-sufficiency, end quote. Jimmy U, thank you for being here today. Please explain to the audience what PCCI does and talk about that glimmer of hope and how that might be snuffed out by these thoughtless, illegal funding cuts. I'll turn it over to you, Jimmy Yu, and please take a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak this evening. Again, my name is Jimmy Yu Evans. I'm the co-CEO of Project Community Connections. We are a nonprofit organization here in Metro Atlanta, serving the homeless population, specifically a rapid rehousing provider. The introduction that Congressman mentioned talked a little bit about our mission statement, which really is about disrupting the cycle of homelessness for individuals, families, veterans, and children who may have created a situation where they're experiencing homelessness in our Metro Atlanta area. We're one of the most important and vital parts of the toolkit of our homeless response system. And one of the interventions specifically that is a part of that response system is something called rapid rehousing, where we provide individuals and families supportive services, financial assistance, advocacy, connections to affordable places to live, to ensure that they have that opportunity to feel that sense of hope, but also to provide them an opportunity to be sustainable and successful in their housing journey. Why this matters really is because we have a lot of unhoused neighbors in our community, individuals who may be episodically homeless, folks that may have had reductions in their job hours, may have had a medical emergency. We now recognize that we have a lot of seniors that are being priced out of the housing market, and they need extra help to ensure that they have the abilities to succeed. So this funding freeze really has affected us at multiple levels within not only our organization, but our community as a result of not having the ability to continue the work going forward. Directly, our organization has been affected from an organization perspective. We have an exceptional leadership team at PCCI, as well as a very tenacious board of directors that supports the mission of our organization. They really stepped in to help us try to figure out ways to mitigate our day-to-day operations as an organization. Our staff of professionals with higher education degrees are really on the ground doing the work day to day to ensure that we're providing direct services to our families, our veterans, our young people who are experiencing homelessness in our Metro Atlanta area. Our clients, most importantly. So currently we have over 400 households enrolled in our rapid rehousing program that are comprised of over 600 people. And those 600 people, at least 1/3 of them are children under the age of 18 years old. So these freezes affect the ability of our young people to be able to continue seeking education in the school system, our seniors having the ability to maintain their housing. It really affects the totality of those individuals. And more specifically, the funds that were frozen were almost $500,000 worth of funds for 1 month that we are providing services to these individuals in our community. So that's just 1 month. About $330,000 of that money is still being held up due to the freeze. So it's affecting our ability to be able to serve our landlords as well. You know, we're providing subsidized rental payments for affordable conventional units that our clients or those that are unhoused that are living in. And our landlords are now going to feel a little bit of the pressure because we're currently unable to release February rent payments. So all of these 400 households that are currently receiving services from PCCI will not be receiving their rent payment for February due to this freeze. And again, this is a community initiative. Homeless services is just not something that PCCI is behind. There are other community organizations around the Metro Atlanta area that are responsible for providing services to this vulnerable population. And myself, as long as the leaders in this continuum of care, as we call it, are really pushing hard to find better solutions to ensure that the continuation of these funding sources move forward that we do not find ourselves in a circumstance that we are seeing additional freezes on these funds, and it doesn't disrupt our ability to continue to operate these valuable services that we're providing in the community. The majority of funds, if people online don't recognize that we receive from the federal government, are all on reimbursement. So we're being reimbursed on a month-to-month basis.
So you are putting out money in the expectation that that you will be reimbursed so that you can then continue to deliver the services that you deliver. So this would pretty much keep you from, in addition to helping the people that you help, it would cause the organization itself to have to take drastic measures just to stay in the game of delivering services, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Congressman. As I said,
And
almost $500,000 of 1 month of services. We wouldn't survive that as an organization, maybe 60 days at max.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is quite serious to the health and vitality of the organizations like yours across the state of Georgia delivering these kinds of services. And we've got a record number of homeless people living out pretty much on the streets, out of their cars, or wherever they can find a place to live. How many of those people do we have here in Georgia? And what percentage of them are women and children?
Great question, Congressman. So on the 20th, when this order came out, many communities across the country were participating in the annual point in time count. And that's when we go out and survey the streets of communities across this nation and count individuals and interact and engage with people who are literally homeless on our streets. Specifically in Georgia, we've got thousands of people who are experiencing homelessness, many of which are families with children and veterans. So we have a huge obligation to continue to provide services to this very vulnerable population. And that point in time count is vital in each community's ability to get continuation funding to serve that particular population. So we're doing the groundwork to make sure that there's a pathway of hope, pride, and sustainability for these individuals. And all of that is at risk at this point with this with the opportunities that are being pulled from under us to be able to continue to provide these services to this population.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks to all of the folks at PCCI for what you do to aid people in terms of shelter, and I thank you for presenting on this town hall. And with that, I'm going to turn now to Jeff Taylor, who is the CEO of MedCura Health, which provides quality, affordable, comprehensive healthcare services that are culturally sensitive and accessible to all in metropolitan Atlanta, particularly in Georgia's 4th District. And Jeff, I want to welcome you to the program. Please tell our viewers the scope of the work MedCura provides and how you've been impacted by all of this chaos and confusion, and what things might look like should Trump and his administration be able to move forward with these draconian cuts and freezes.
Thank you, Congressman Johnson, for pulling this community conversation together. Again, my name is Jeff Taylor, and I'm with MedCura Health, a federally qualified health center. We've served DeKalb County for 44 years, providing primary care healthcare services to the community. We provide family medicine, OB/GYN, pediatrics, behavioral health, and many other specialty services to the underserved. We provide healthcare services to about 23,000 individuals in DeKalb County each year, and our services keep people out of emergency rooms as we provide basic healthcare services. Particularly important for us is pediatrics and OB/GYN. Georgia is already in the bottom 5 in maternal mortality with all the changes we've had in healthcare. Prenatal care affects our most vulnerable population. Now, we were directly impacted by the pause yesterday as we struggled to, or a couple of days ago, as we struggled to draw down funds for the services that we provide. And just like the previous speaker, we are reimbursed for the services that we provide. So the inability to be reimbursed for what we've already spent can be devastating to an organization. And I don't feel like we're out of the woods right now. I feel like we're still in a situation, as you mentioned, Congressman, that this could happen again. So these changes have a direct impact. These freezes have a direct impact on our ability to provide healthcare services to the community, making it harder for some individuals to access preventive care, mental health services. Affordable prescriptions is another big thing that we do. And it's interesting, Congressman Johnson, over the years, we've had many health summits. And it seems like we're making progress. And then something like this happens, and it just makes we kind of go into our own shells, because we're just struggling for survival when there's a whole lot of uncertainty for healthcare services. And so, it's good that we're having this conversation. These conversations are very important to ensure that our voices are heard. But as you can realize, our ability to provide healthcare services can affect 23,000 people in DeKalb County.
Yeah, well, that's pretty substantial. And MedCura does excellent work bringing healthcare to close to people who are without access to the healthcare system. And the community health system network, which operates throughout Georgia and throughout the country, has been bolstered and strengthened in its ability to render these services by the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, and the subsidies that people who are working and can purchase insurance, but which make that insurance in the healthcare marketplace affordable. Those subsidies or grants were also impacted, or would also be impacted, if Trump is able to continue with his plan to really reshape government. And what he wants to do is to tear down what's in place right now. And he wants to tear it down in terms of government employees. That's why he sent that email to the 2 million federal employees. He wants to cut them. He wants to get rid of as many agencies as he can. And so what they would then do is outsource everything, privatize everything, so that the billionaires, his billionaire buddies, could make even more money. And on top of that, with not putting money into government, you can then give those same billionaires a tax cut. And then you cut benefits that people receive, like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP benefits, food stamps, and other benefits. You cut those benefits in order to give a tax cut to the billionaires. And so then the wealth ends up shifting even greater to the top 1% and away from the bottom 99%. That's what the scheme is. And so, Jeff, thanks for the work that MedCura does to serve the people of Georgia's 4th District and the people of the state of Georgia. Thank you. And next I will go to Ms. Jacqueline Brown, who is CEO of Empowerment Resources Center, ERC, a nonprofit based in Atlanta. ERC provides HIV and sexually transmitted infection prevention education, risk reduction and family planning counseling, among many other health-related services, including mental health programs. Jacqueline, thank you for being here. I know your organization offers a myriad of healthcare services, but tell us about your focus on African American women and tell us a little about ERC and how these cuts are affecting you or would affect you and your programs.
Thank you, Congressman Johnson, for inviting me. Um, Empowerment Resource Center was founded to serve African American women, although our population has changed immensely over the years because our service repertoire of services have expanded. We are talking about $2.3 million in funds. I am basically pessimistic that we will be able to continue to provide the services that we provide. Many of our programs are funded under what SAMHSA deems as a minority AIDS initiative. That alone, because DEI isn't quite defined, we are very pessimistic that those programs will survive. Each of them, although they are not DEI, I'm not sure how they define that because DEI also includes people with disabilities. So I'm not sure if it's clear to the administration what exactly they mean by DEI. But I will tell you that even though the letter was rescinded, we are still unable to access those funds. I spoke with someone at Payment Management today, and they said, I quote, because of the executive order, these grants have been placed in a hold status because they require the awardee agency's approval. But the federal project officers have been silenced. They are unable to respond. And so they can't do anything and they can't remove the hold that's on the grants.
So this is clear evidence right here in our face that the Trump administration is disregarding a federal judge's restraining order, which bars him from letting these funds flow. If they're
Yes.
not allowing access to the spigot to turn it on, you are disregarding a federal court ruling, thumbing your nose at it. And this is the kind of illegal material. This is the kind of illegal conduct that we can expect to see moving forward. But continue, Ms. Brown.
We too are in an organization that requires reimbursement. And so we have spent these funds. We have about 40 employees who rely on us to pay their salaries. We serve about 5,500 clients annually. We are seeking to become a federally qualified health center like MedCure. Our application is in. Empowerment Resource Center has 8 federal grants. 3 are with SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. 2 are with the CDC. 1 is with the Health Resources and Services Administration. 1, the Title X one. So when President Trump was in office before, there was a gag rule that we could not talk about reproductive health services, which is under Title X. I anticipate that coming back. And lastly, we have a NIH grant, National Institute of Health grant, that is a partnership for research with the University of Georgia and the University of South Carolina. All of those are at jeopardy. And the health services that we provide are for those people who are medically and economically underserved. In a state that has opted not to expand Medicaid, and the governor has his own version of some semblance of Medicaid. Some of these individuals we serve, we are the only source or a federally qualified health center where they can actually access health services if the health departments are not able to do that. So the impact is immeasurable. We cannot draw down funds. Our funds are still frozen, even though typically when we would draw down, you would see those funds in the bank the next day, as long as it was in a business week. It's been a couple of days, and so it still shows pending. And I have been routinely sending screenshots to our representatives, Congress people, and our senators to let them know we are in. It's a quagmire for us. This is a horrible conundrum that you just can't prepare for.
Yeah, it's like once Congress authorizes and appropriates the money and the program, then the executive, the president, under the Constitution is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. So what happens when the president fails and refuses to do what the Constitution requires him to do, which is to administer and execute these programs that Congress has authorized and put money into? You know, what do you do? So the normal process is to take it to court, which has happened. Democrats in the House and Senate working with outside partners, outside stakeholders, filed lawsuits, got the lawsuit to enjoin the president, to tell him you must continue the status quo. And then when the president refuses to do that, then you can hold him, you can file a motion to hold him in contempt of court. And if the court holds him in contempt and he thumbs his nose at the court and says, yeah, I'm just going to do what I want to do because I am the president and I control the federal law enforcement agencies and I control the military, I control the hard power. So come and make me do what you think you can. And then it's like, okay, the legislative branch doesn't control a law enforcement agency. The judicial branch doesn't control the law enforcement or the military. So we're setting up for a constitutional clash and a destruction of our democracy if this kind of illegal conduct continues. I mean, this is where we are right now in terms of preserving our democracy. And that's why I wanted folks to be on this call so that they could understand the gravity of what's happening. It's all of these executive orders and the effects that that ensue from them are part of what Trump is trying to do, and that's flood the zone, make people numb, put people to sleep, get people to start ignoring the reality of what's happening and saying, there's nothing I can do about it. That's the worst thing that can happen right now. That's why I'm taking action by having this meeting to alert people to what's happening and to not go to sleep. Don't get numbed out. Be ready to spring into action, but you gotta be aware of what's happening. And so that's why I appreciate you, Ms. Brown, for coming in and letting us know what's happening with your organization. And next, I want to go to Jean Douglas, who is the Executive Director at Women's Resource Center to End Domestic Violence, which is based in Decatur. The Women's Resource Center, their mission is to create a society in which domestic violence no longer exists. Every day they strive to meet the immediate and long-term needs of the diverse community of battered women and their children with programs that promote safety, compassion, connection, advocacy, and prevention. I've known Jean since my days as a DeKalb County Commissioner, so her tenure at the center goes back more than 20 years. Welcome, Jean. Good to see you. Please tell us a little bit about the center, what you do, and how critical this funding, this federal funding, is for your missions.
Sure. Thank you for having me this evening, Congressman Johnson. Remember
You're
when you were
welcome.
county commissioner and I was begging for money back then at the DeKalb County Commission meeting. So thank you for supporting us and having us on tonight. My name is Jean Douglas. I'm the Executive Director at the Women's Resource Center to End Domestic Violence. And we've been providing services in our community since 1986 for 38 years. The services that we provide are critical services. They are usually emergency services to assist women and children as they are escaping the domestic violence that they're experiencing. And so we have families that we support in safe houses. We have families that we support in transitional housing once they move out of our safe house. We do a great deal of legal advocacy as well in offering financial support to the families we serve. So about 60% of our grant monies come through federal funds. Some of those come through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council here. And then we also have grants that we receive through the Office of Violence Against Women, through the Department of Justice. Not knowing that this was going to happen, we were quite fortunate to put in some reimbursements earlier in the month and actually received the reimbursement the same day that the letter came out, that these funds were being frozen. And so we were fortunate to get that, but it's the uncertainty of going forward, not knowing what to expect. I mean, typically when we sign grant agreements, we feel pretty good that those funds are promised and guaranteed. And so we can build our budgets, we can build the support that we're offering around that, but these are definitely unprecedented times, with the uncertainty. And the need doesn't go away. I mean, since COVID, domestic violence in our community has increased substantially. So we've been working really hard and diligent to maintain the services that we offer. And so without the uncertainty, we just don't know what the future holds and how to plan for that.
And I imagine the uncertainty that permeates the populace, the people, is contributing to people acting out inappropriately, domestic violence being something that can rise as as the temperature level starts to boil, as more anxiety, as people feel and experience more anxiety about, whether or not my money is coming on my job, whether or not I'm going to lose my job or not, whether or not my company is going to be able to survive. Those kinds, what's going to happen when I show up for work next week as one of these federal employees, and I've received this notice. I feel insecure about my job. Those kinds of things trigger the kind of actions that your organization is here to help victims to recover from. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're correct about that. And that's why we believe we saw the increase during COVID, because it was the uncertainty that happened then and a lot of financial stressors that families were under, that, they're still under today, that caused the increase since COVID happened. And so, yes, even more uncertainty is more likely to increase the number of families that will need to reach out for support.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for agreeing to come and share, on this town hall meeting. And with that, I'd like to recognize the elected officials who are on the call. First, my wife, DeKalb County Commissioner Marita Davis Johnson, District 5, is on the call. Also, Stonecrest Mayor Jasmine Cobble is on the line or is on the call. Stonecrest City Councilwoman Tammy Grimes, Stonecrest Councilwoman Alicia Washington, Rockdale Clerk of Superior Court Janice Morris is on the call. And also Councilwoman Yvonne Tucker is on the call. Plus we have two MARTA board members, Ms. Rita Scott and Mr. Roderick Frierson. Thank you all for being on the call. And what I'd like to do is to now go to our last presenter. It's Kay Walker, who is the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives at Catholic Charities Atlanta, where she manages grant efforts, partnerships, and strategic planning. Catholic Charities Atlanta provides transformative services that empower families to achieve self-sufficiency. Like several of our organizations tonight, excuse me, Catholic Charities offers an array of services from food security and veteran services to housing and financial counseling. Catholic Charities has served our communities for more than 75 years. And Kate, welcome and thank you for being here. Please give us your perspective on the federal funding freeze this week and how you all are coping.
Good evening, and thank you, Congressman Johnson and your team for inviting us here tonight. Again, Catholic Charities Atlanta provides a wide range of transformative services that empower families to achieve self-sufficiency. As you said, we've been doing that for over 75 years here in Metro Atlanta, and we serve over 11,000 individuals each year. So last week, we received 3 immediate stop work orders, which means at least 3,000 people will go without our critical supportive services. And if the federal freeze were to go into effect, that number would at least triple. Our critical services help keep people self-sufficient, and our federal funding is essential as we provide housing for low-income seniors, housing counseling and foreclosure intervention to keep families in their homes, public benefit assistance, which is mostly SNAP applications so that working families can keep food on the table, rental assistance, parenting education for families involved with DFACs, services for survivors of domestic violence and other crimes, assistance for abandoned children that are vulnerable to trafficking, after-school programming and youth mentoring, adult education, employment services, the list goes on. And we're just one agency. So without such funding, our organization will be greatly impacted, obviously, in how we're able to operate. You know, as mentioned, these grants are on a reimbursement basis, but our bigger concern is for our families, families who are already struggling to pay rent and afford food, families who will have fewer chances to be self-sufficient. And we really worry about the catastrophic impacts across our community. So it's been a difficult and confusing week and a half, for all of us, as we've said, for our staff, for the families that we serve. We're really called to care for our neighbors in need. And so we're going to continue to do what we can to show mercy and transform lives.
Thank you, Kate. Mercy and compassion are important. Government of, by, and for the people, using taxpayer money to help people, particularly those who are less fortunate and need help. I mean, that's where the money goes, to help people who need help. And organizations like Catholic Charities of Atlanta has been filling that need for people and administering and counseling and helping people. And so when you just take an axe and cut off that funding, a lot of people get hurt. And so I sincerely hope that we can continue with this freeze having been stopped in part by a federal court. And I hope that we can get the Trump administration to comply fully with that restraining order that's been entered against them. And so that these organizations like yours, Kate, can continue to render the services to the people. And so I thank you for agreeing to be a panelist tonight. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that your organization does. And with that, I'd like to answer a few questions that we have received. One is, will Donald Trump's freeze on funding affect the distribution of my Social Security benefits? The answer to that is that we must all take with a grain of salt. Programs like Social Security would not be impacted. However, we fear federal employee hiring freezes could eventually jeopardize staffing levels at agencies like the Social Security Administration, which processes the monthly checks and helps address issues like missing or incorrect payments. So let's be clear, this attempt to force 2 million federal employees off the rolls can have an impact on Social Security down the line. It's not impacted by the freeze per se, but the effect of the freeze could hurt as we move forward. And so whoever posed that question, thanks for that question. I want to acknowledge that over 500 people right now across platforms are currently watching and listening to what we're doing because they're interested, and that's a great sign. I'm glad that that is happening. That's why I wanted to do this tonight, because let me read y'all something that was sent to me today by a friend. And let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Sent to me this morning. Come to me, come to me. Gosh, it was from a sociologist who was talking about what we need to do, what we should not do. And let me get that for you. I know I have it. Y'all stick with me. I'm pulling it up. It's coming. I get a lot of text messages, and I try to. Well, it'd be help. I know what it is. I'm looking at emails. I need to be looking at text messages. Okay, let me switch to text messaging. And yeah, here it is. It's from sociologist Jennifer Walter about what is happening in our country right now and what to do about it. And she says, as a sociologist, I need to tell you, their goal is to overwhelm you. One, the flood of 200 plus executive orders in Trump's first days exemplifies the shock doctrine, using chaos and crisis to push through radical changes while people are too disoriented or effective to resist. They're too disoriented to effectively resist. This isn't just politics as usual, it's a strategic exploitation of cognitive limits. So this is what's known as flooding the zone. This is what Trump has been doing. Media theorist McLuhan predicted this. When humans face information overload, they become passive and disengaged. The rapid fire executive orders create a cognitive bottleneck, making it nearly impossible for citizens and media to thoroughly analyze any single policy. The agenda setting theory explains the strategy. When multiple major policies compete for attention simultaneously, it fragments public discourse. Traditional media can't keep up with the pace, leading to superficial coverage, and the result is weakened democratic oversight and reduced public engagement. So flooding the zone leads to weakened democratic oversight and reduced public engagement. So what do we do? Number one, set boundaries and pick 2 or 3 issues you deeply care about and focus your attention there. You can't track everything. That's by design. Impact comes from sustained focus, not scattered awareness. 2, use aggregators and experts. Find trusted analysts who do the heavy lifting of synthesis and look for those explained, look for the patterns, not just for the events. And remember, feeling overwhelmed is the point. When you recognize that you are overwhelmed, you regain some power. So take breaks, process what is happening, and then realize that this is a marathon. So practice going slow. Wait 48 hours before reacting to new policies. The urgent clouds aren't as important. Initial reporting often misses context. And last and most importantly, build community, share the cognitive load. Different people track different issues. Network intelligence beats individual overload. Remember, they want you to be scattered and your focus is your resistance. So this is some words from sociologist Jennifer Walter, Walter. You can look her up and read a little bit more about what I've told you today. It'll help you cope with this avalanche of stuff that's coming at us. My next question I want to take is this one. I'm a federal employee. Things are insane for us right now, and it feels like nobody is fighting for us at all in the government. Do you have a plan to help us out? Georgia is home to nearly 80,000 federal employees, including 15,623 who live in Georgia's 4th district. I encourage you to stay put and do not let the intimidation work. That's the goal of this chaos, to scare honest, hardworking federal employees like you from leaving so they can install their loyalist and then do whatever they want. We need to keep folks like you in place because you are qualified to be there and you do an important service for all of us. By sticking around and fighting back on the inside, you can help us stop this nonsense. And I can promise you this, House and Senate Democrats are fighting back hard, and we're going to do everything we can to stop this, but we cannot do it alone. It'll take all of us standing up, speaking out, and not backing down. So thank you for that question. Next question. What county services are being impacted by the freeze? Police, sanitation, library is the question. And the answer is this freeze only affects federal funding. If the county uses local county funds to administer those programs, then those services should not be impacted. But if they use federal funding or require federal grants to administer, then there's a good chance you could see a halt in those programs or at the very least a slowdown in services. Let's see. Next question. What should U.S. government employees do who have been offered a buyout package to resign from their jobs? Is there any action to take to protect their job? Well, first, you should never accept a buyout or a payment offer from a man who has a track record of never paying his employees or contractors. Second, Donald Trump does not have the legal authority to offer payouts or buyouts. It's all a game to get you to send in that email with a simple word, resign, and then they will have accomplished their objective. You can't trust them to pay you any money beyond what you're owed for what you've already done. It's all a game to get you out of the way so that Trump can install his cronies. And if you or your colleagues receive that offer, you should ignore it because it's meaningless. And many federal employees, but not all, may have additional protections through their union representation. So I encourage you to check with your union and get best advice if you're a member of the union from your union shop stewards and your union officials. But if you are not a member of the union, then heed my warnings that federal law does not allow for a president to pay people who are not working beyond 10 days of leave. So of unearned leave, in other words. So don't fall for the okie doke and take yourself out of the game voluntarily. If they're going to fire you, make them fire you, but you have civil service protections. And so you can rely on those. So it's kind of an unsettled time right now for federal employees. I know that. And You know, let's weather this flood of information coming in, the flooding the zone. Let's remember what that sociologist, Ms. Walter, had to say about it, and protect yourself from it. Uh, Next question I want to answer has to do with how will this impact elderly, retired veterans and spouses who are on TRICARE and Medicare and who receive military retirement checks. Um, Per Office of Management and Budget guidelines, veterans and military benefits will not have been or would not have been impacted. The Department of Defense and the VA were largely spared from Trump's hiring freeze and spending freeze. So you don't have to worry as a veteran or a spouse of a veteran about your Medicare or TRICARE or your military retirement checks. Those are going to be coming to you. But again, if you don't have anybody working to get the checks out, then it could have an impact. So we'll see what happens. Next question, when is the federal freeze supposed to take place? Well, on Tuesday evening, the Office of Management and Budget issued a memorandum outlining a freeze on nearly all federal funding. And after sparking quite a bit of outrage and also being taken to court, OMB, and they lost the court case, OMB issued clarification guidance to assure Americans that it would not impact programs like SNAP, Medicaid, VA benefits, and other programs. And after they released that guidance, nearly every state reported frozen Medicaid portals, leading to fear that the program would be harmed. And so you just simply can't believe the stuff that these folks are telling you from the administration. They are sometimes, just like President Trump, flat-foot lying to you, looking you in the dead in the eye and just lying. Now, before the order was supposed to take effect on Wednesday, a federal judge issued an emergency order pausing the order from taking effect until Monday, February 3rd. However, because of so many people speaking up and speaking out, the Trump administration retracted the order on Wednesday afternoon, and but yet they retracted the memo, but not the substance of the freeze, and so we're still at risk, depending on what happens in court on Monday, February 3rd, and whether or not this restraining order will be lifted or whether or not it will continue in effect. We won't know until Monday, February 3rd. And, there's adequate reason to fear that the administration is going to do everything it can to continue its efforts to freeze this federal spending, because the next director of the Office of Management and Budget is one of the prime authors of Project 2025, which is the playbook out of which all of these executive orders and executive actions are coming from. He wrote the book on it. Now he's going to control the purse strings. And like I said, if they want to do what they want to do and snub their nose at Congress and at the court, it means our democracy is over. And that's what we're headed towards. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we certainly, are headed for some dark times ahead. And it may mean that we have to get out into the streets and protest. And I'm talking about peaceful, nonviolent protests to protect our democracy. The people who brought about change in this country for civil rights for Black people, they did it through nonviolent, peaceful protests. Nonviolent, peaceful protests is the way to go, not violence. And so we may have to get out into the streets in peaceful protests to protect our democracy at some point. And that's why we have to remain vigilant. We have to remain aware of what is happening. And like that sociologist said, we may not know everything, but we certainly should affiliate with like-minded people. And each person knows a little bit about something that the other doesn't know much about. And but we're like-minded. And we come together for a common purpose, which is to protect and preserve freedom and democracy for all in this country. So that's what we have to do. And I hope that this call can inspire people to be more alert and more aware about what we face. And I hope that it inspires people to have the courage to be able to take action in their lives to protect our democracy. That's what it's going to take. I'm going to take another question here. Will this funding freeze affect FHA and VA loans? Will it affect HUD-funded programs, especially for enforcing the Fair Housing Act? Much of the original order was expected to exempt the Department of Veterans Affairs, but other housing affordability programs would likely have been paused or halted altogether. And so, that's where we stand on that. So let's see, we're at 8:11 p.m. It's getting a little late. I think it's time to close this meeting. I want to thank all of you all who participated in it. I want to thank my staff for producing this town hall. And I want to thank the panelists for presenting. I want to pledge to you that we will stay engaged and we will continue to let you know what's going on, and so that you can then be inspired to do what you need to do in order to protect yourself and your loved ones, and also give a little back to the community and to society. Those things still continue regardless of those values are still there regardless of the fact that Trump doesn't have them and his minions and supporters don't have them. We've got to show them. And I have great confidence that us, along with others across the country, can make a powerful difference. And things don't have to be as bad as they could be if we are sleeping. And so that's the worst thing that we can do, is go to sleep and stay that way. So wake up, be woke. I know that's a bad word, but that's the way to go. Need to be woke. And let's come together and let's work hard to have the kind of country and society that we can will to our children and to our grandchildren. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you all once again for listening, and